Okay.
Very good to meet you.
Thank you. Would you first tell my audience who you are and what role you play? We know because you guys have quite a campaign, but tell my audience a little bit about it.
So my name is Matthew Elliott, and I was the chief executive of the recent Vote Leave campaign. And this is a campaign that won the recent referendum in the UK on leaving the European Union. So we won that by 52%, which means that now in the next few years, Britain will leave the European Union.
2017, we're talking about.
So the process of Britain leaving the EU will start at the beginning of 2017 and will probably take about 2 years to do all of the negotiations. Britain has been a member of the European Union now for well over 40 years, and with 60% of our laws being made by the EU, there's lots of decisions to be made about how Britain leaves, but the decision's been made, and the new government in the UK, led by Prime Minister Theresa May, is adamant that Britain will be leaving, so this will actually be happening.
But what's wrong with EU making all the laws? Because a lot of people think, well, Europe is a big union, and since they're union, you have free trade and free movement among all those countries. And well, naturally, if they make the law, why the people are so angry with the European laws?
I think voters see, quite rightly, the UK as being a single democratic country. And they're very unhappy with the fact that the European Union wasn't as democratic as the UK. So they felt that here were 60% of our laws being made in Brussels without any control from British voters, so in an unaccountable fashion. And they're annoyed by that. They wanted Britain to be a democracy again. They wanted 100% of our laws to be made by officials and politicians who we elect as people, undertaking things that they want them to do, we've mandated them to do. And there's a big difference, for example, between the EU and the United States. In the United States, of course, it's one people, it's one demos, to use that word. Whereas within the EU, there are lots of different countries, lots of different peoples. So it could never really be a true democracy on its own. And it's that really drove the message of Vote Leave. We wanted to take back control to Britain so we could elect the people who made our laws.
But help me to understand from an ordinary voter's point of view. Say, if you are working in Bristol, working in Lancaster, and what impact of the EU laws to you as an ordinary person, a working class? I understand a lot of working classes people voted for exit. What's the impact?
So one clear impact would be the effect of migration. Now, with Britain being a member of the European Union, anybody who lives within the entire European Union has the right to live and work in the UK. So there's a big flow of migration from particularly the East European member states to live in the UK. Now, this has a big effect on the working man, on the blue-collar voters. Because, of course, it meant there were many more people who were willing to do the less highly skilled jobs, which, of course, meant that wages were kept low, that wages didn't rise. So people have seen their wages static for many, many years. And also people have seen more strain, more demand being put on public services, be it their local schools and the class size in the local schools, or be it their local hospitals and the waiting lists and the waiting times to get operations. So membership of the EU had a direct impact in their lives, particularly with the issue of migration. But there are many other ways as well.
They are not elected by the voters.
Well, the key point is that our migration policy in the UK wasn't being made by elected politicians in the UK. We had a free flow of migrants from anywhere in the EU to come and live and work in the UK. But actually at the same time, it meant we couldn't have so many people from outside of the EU coming to live and work in the UK. So what we're calling for is a system where we have controlled migration. And that will mean the government, the elected government, will be able to pick and choose who are the right people to come and live and work in the UK. Now, I did focus groups of voters during the campaign where I talked to them about this issue. And they would say to me, why should it be the case that we can have an unskilled person from Bulgaria coming to live and work in the UK, but we can't have a Chinese highly skilled engineer coming to live and work in the UK because there isn't enough room. So what we want is a fair system so we can attract the right people from right across the world, from both Europe but also other continents, including.
Yeah, it interests me a lot is that I think the Brexit changed the vote changed Britain's electoral or political map. If you think of it traditionally, the Labour Party represent or the blue classes, and especially the union members. And this time, my understanding is that not that many Labour Party rank and file members was excited about remaining, but lots of them voted for exit. Isn't that the case?
You're absolutely right. The Labour Party leadership has become increasingly isolated from their blue-collar workers. So they started representing more the white-collar Labour vote, particularly the Labour voters around London who tend to be more affluent. But those blue-collar Labour voters, the working-class Labour voters, the voters who are the foundational support of the Labour Party, they were very supportive of Britain leaving the EU. So those people felt they weren't being represented by the Labour Party. They felt the Labour leadership didn't understand their concerns about issues like migration and the impact it had on their wages, the impact it had on their jobs, and the impact it had on their public.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if you think I'm wrong. What I see is that the similarity in the US and Britain, other European countries, or the entire world. In the past 30 years, when globalization happened, gradually you see a convergence of the upper classes in the whole world. So the upper classes make money the same way. Doesn't matter if it's in Washington, Wall Street, London, or Beijing, or Shanghai, or Moscow. But they all kind of left their ordinary people, rank and file people behind. So what I see is that the people in each country, well, revolted according to whatever their system. So I think Britain and US, we are in a democratic system, and this year we see lots of voters revolt. So how that voters revolt started in Britain?
I think you're right to say there's a big gulf between the elites and ordinary people, not only in the UK, but also in the US and other countries as well. And I think for ordinary people, they don't have the opportunities to live in any country in the world like the global elite do. They don't have the opportunity to structure their tax affairs, for example, in a most tax-efficient way by taking advantage of different tax havens. They have to pay exactly. Ordinary voters aren't able to do this. And they are starting to see a global elite who are basically out of touch with their ordinary concerns. And this very much came through in the referendum. They saw the elite who are very pro-European, very pro-EU, very comfortable with the EU, but disregard the concerns and the effect the EU had on their ordinary standard of living.
But ordinary such voters' dissent or voters' anger would reflect in the current party system and voter system. But at least what you see in the States or in UK, I guess, the parties, two parties or all parties, the upper class, they're kind of united. And so how did the ordinary people or people like you, I don't know how to categorize your class, how do you start organizing the ordinary people? Otherwise they are...
Well, this issue had started not just recently, but many years ago. So basically in the early 1990s, that's when people in the UK first started to feel uncomfortable with our membership of the European Union. And over the course of many years, different groups started to get together. Political parties were set up, like the Referendum Party in 1997 or the UK Independence Party of Nigel Farage. Different think tanks were set up. Then there were pockets of support in all of the major parties of people who believed in leaving the EU. So this was really an effort over 25 years, a slow build-up of support. And that slow build-up of support happened because politicians were always saying to people in their parties, look, we can reform the European Union, stay in the EU, it can be reformed. We'll make it more democratic, we'll make it more free trading, we'll make it lighter in terms of regulation. But these reforms never happened. In fact, what we saw was more power going to Brussels, more money going to Brussels, more control over our lives from Brussels. And that's when our support for Leave grew. So really, like you say, this has happened in a democratic system. It's happened with ordinary people forming groups, forming parties, forming think tanks, all with the objective of restoring control, taking back control to the UK.
Last question. You surely see the parallel between the United States and the UK. And care to make a few comments on the Trump campaign?
I don't see that parallel. There are some similarities in the sense that a lot of the people who voted for Leave were people from the working classes or the blue-collar workers who were disgruntled by the effects of the EU and the wider effects of globalization. But one crucial difference about the campaign was that the message from Leave voters wasn't that we don't want any immigration. So it wasn't the idea of building a wall or filling in the English Channel. That wasn't the message. The message was about having the right form of migration, having controlled migration. So a democratically elected government in the UK could decide what was the right mix of people to come and live and work in the UK. So in a sense, it's very easy for people to make a parallel. And I know that people like Nigel Farage, the head of UKIP, suggests a very strong parallel. But actually, I actually think that we won because we actually broke away from that point of view and actually brought on board those people who are more moderate, more mainstream, more from the centre, and more internationalist.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.